CTBK is more than just a full-service accounting firm. They are one team with an innovative approach to accounting and rise to each new challenge with collaborative problem-solving skills. CTBK goes above and beyond by lending helping hands in the Buffalo and Niagara community through volunteer work and donations, and is partnered up with Victory Sports for 2020 and 2021 to keep kids in the community active. The professionals at CTBK are determined to help individuals and businesses succeed. Whether a large corporation, a small business, or somewhere in between, call CTBK at 716-630-2400. Again, 716-630-2400, and see what CTBK's one-team approach can do for you. Welcome to Tim Graham and Friends, brought to you by CTBK, CPAs and Business Consultants. I'm Tim Graham of The Athletic, joined by Kris Baker. You follow him on Twitter at Sabres Prospects, so you can guess what we're about to talk about. Sabres prospects. Not only their underlings, the people who are coming through the pipeline, but the Sabres prospects on 2021, 2022. Things look a little different since the last time we spoke to Kris Baker. Thanks for joining us, Kris.
Thanks, Tim. Yeah, it's been a while. I think the last time we talked, they didn't have, it was before the draft. So a lot of these guys, specifically Owen Power, were not formally in the Sabres fold.
We were discussing whether Owen Power was going to be the number one pick. And we settled that he probably would be, but we got into some other things too that were of interest.
That day, I remember we said that you could also make a case for his teammate, Matty Beniers. And, you know, I think you could still make a case potentially. But, I mean, Owen Power does look very good. And I think Sabres fans that have been following along are realizing the type of player and the caliber of human being that the Sabres have acquired via the draft there with it.
Yeah, and I don't think that Sabres fans are thinking that Owen Power is the missing piece for this season. So you might as well let him marinate down there at the college level, get that kind of experience, and let that entry-level contract start a year later too.
Let them all marinate, man. Let them all marinate, Tim.
For a couple of years.
Yep.
Hey, I don't want to the elephant in the room I should address. I've been on the shelf with COVID. You can tell by looking at me that I look rough in many ways, not only because of the beard, but I have to say that looking at myself right now, and if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see my Pete Rose hairdo, which is not great. And it looks even worse with the beard because my beard is white and my hair is dark, so it certainly looks as though I'm wearing a wig.
Timmy Hustle. Timmy Hustle.
Right.
I love it, though. It's like the same thing like Howard Stern's got that going on, too. He's got this dark coif, and he's got the white beard. It's a very distinguished look, Tim. You look good, but I'm glad, more importantly, that you're back and feeling better.
Yeah, it was a rough go, and you can probably tell I'm still a little stuffy. But all the other symptoms are finally cleared away. It was one of those deals. I mean, everyone's different. So I'm not telling anybody some secret to how to deal with COVID if it were to befall you or anything like that. But mine was just every day was such a gradual improvement. Usually when I have the flu or a cold or something, you get it for a day or two, and then it's like you wake up one day and you feel awesome or you feel back to normal. This was not the case. This was, if I look back to a week ago when I tested positive, and I think I probably had it a couple of days before that, when I look, a big change in a week, but from a day-to-day basis, hell, I didn't even think I was changing at all. It was different symptoms every day too. No good.
Can't identify. I haven't had it yet. I don't, at least to my knowledge, I haven't. You know, and I say yet because I think that it's inevitable.
You may have had it.
May have had it, yeah. But I don't know. Like I said, man, I mean, I'm not surprised anymore when I hear that people have had it, you know.
Yeah, it's not a thing.
It's everywhere, you know.
It's not a thing. I just want to mention, because I haven't done a podcast in a week and a half. So just letting people know that I haven't been asleep at the switch. Or I guess I should also, it's a self-deprecating thing. It's not as though I have some big expose that's in the chamber that I'm ready to unleash, that I've been diligently working away on some big investigative piece. Nope,
You always
just
have
been sleeping a
lots of
lot.
irons. You always have lots of irons in the fire, though, Tim. We know this.
I do. And in fact, this is a recording at a very unusual hour for me. We're recording this early on Friday before, well, the sun's up, I guess. But anyways, I do have calls to make before the weekend. Kris, we would have spoken a long time ago if it weren't for my illness, because we need to break down this Jack Eichel trade. And you can say that, oh, geez, nobody cares anymore. But this is the perspective that Kris Baker has. I think that it's important to hear your thoughts, especially on the return investment, that the return on the investment, I guess I should say. I don't even know if that's the right phrase. As much has been invested into Jack Eichel, this is selling short in some regards. I guess I'll just leave the floor open to you, Kris. Your thoughts on the Sabres. I'll just set it up. Peyton Krebs, Alex Tuck, a first-round pick and a second-round pick, and there's conditions on those picks. Not exactly what Kevin Weeks was touting, but what's your thoughts on the haul that the Sabres procured?
Yeah, it's interesting how you position that too, because I think you're never really going to get back full value on what the organization invested into Jack Eichel, both emotionally and financially. If you think about it with the fan base and going back to 2015, how he was actually acquired. But I think given the circumstances, I think it's a trade ultimately that both teams will benefit from. Who wins the trade? Who knows? I don't even know how you really quantify who wins trades, but I believe, the players that they got back, the active resources right now, and Tuck and Krebs. We'll start with Tuck. I think as a whole, I think it was very important. And I think they were going to get this type of return regardless of who they danced with. But it was very important that they got players back that fit into that age bracket of this emerging core that they're looking to develop currently with guys like Dahlin and Middlestat, Dylan Cousins, Yoki Haru, these guys are like 22 to 24, 25. And look, I mean, they were in position to go out and add a 28, 29-year-old established NHL player at this point and where the franchise is at. But I mean, they hit the mark there, I think, with Tuck and Krebs both. I think it was really important from a team chemistry, from a personality standpoint. I think they did well there. When you look at Tuck, very, very fast skater for a big guy, finishes a lot of plays off the rush. He's going to be a regular 20-goal scorer in this league, maybe more. I'd like to set the bar a little more easy to achieve for a guy like that. I'm pretty confident in saying that he'll be a regular 20-goal guy here, especially with the center depth that the Sabres have amassed in that same age bracket. They're all going to grow together. They're all going to experience highs and lows together, and hopefully at the end of it become a very tight, cohesive unit for a while. That's the plan here. I think he's got a good contract, but I do, when you look at his play on the ice, he can play a little bit heavy, but for a bigger guy, he's more of that high speed, high skill, finish off the rush type of player. He's going to fit right in. It's been, beat into everyone's head ad nauseum how he's, a upstate New York native from the Syracuse area, grew up liking the Sabres. We don't need to, I don't think, rehash that here. That's for everyone else to do, but that is a bonus. Okay.
Well, let's actually stop right on that point real quick.
Yeah.
How significant do you think it was that the Tuck piece of this trade is from a background that it's easy to sell on joining the Sabres, and you're not getting a guy who like Slava Kozlov in the Hasek trade, that he shows up and says, I don't want to be here, or at least with his body language, he could say all the right things, but it's like, I do not want to be a Buffalo Sabre. That I do. And Kevin Adams kind of admitted it, that was part of the draw, but from at least a PR standpoint of, we need to make sure we get a guy who's going to come here and be at least excited to be here. And it's hard to find guys like that, and unless you're getting a guy who grew up rooting for the team.
100%. No, I think it's crucial for the Sabres, for their marketing efforts, for, just the fact that they were moving this big piece, their captain, a very highly visible piece. There was a whole fan movement about getting him. I mean, there was a lot. That's an investment that I was referring to earlier. I think it was crucial from a marketing standpoint, from a PR standpoint, but also from a legitimate team building standpoint. Kevin Adams says, I want people that want to be here. we talked about it a while ago. You put your players, when you're reassessing the roster in the offseason, put them in two piles, who's in, who's out. And to get a guy that you know who's in, I think just helps everyone. I think, we'll talk about this when we get to Krebs, but on that piece, I do think it's critical for all the parts of the business that the Sabres are managing to get someone that wants to be here. Because the idea is that wanting to be here is going to translate to on-ice performance as well. So you're not just bought in to what it is to be a Buffalo Sabre that Kevin Adams says, but it's also someone that actually has a lot of pride putting that uniform on, knows what it means, that was instilled in him when he was a little boy. I think that does matter. And that's, you can look at it a couple ways. Oh, it's hokey, it doesn't mean anything. I think it does mean something because, culturally, culture is a thing in sports, I believe. And that's a part of that fabric of the culture. To shift to Krebs for a little bit, with Krebs, it's really interesting. I think that he was the piece that they really needed to get in this trade. He was a very high-profile player in his draft year. Probably would have gone a little bit higher than 17th overall, where he ultimately was taken by Vegas, if he didn't have an Achilles injury like a month and a half before the draft. He was a legitimate top 10 prospect in his draft class. Natural centerman. I think Kevin Adams sees a lot of himself in a player. That's what he sees in Krebs. Kevin Adams did not take shortcuts as a player. He didn't have the high skill, that impressive skill and hands and speed that Peyton Krebs has. But I think in terms of, again, his moral fabric, his approach to the game, the no shortcuts, having a three-zone commitment, okay, so playing the full 200 feet of ice and playing the right way. Again, I'm using some cliches here, but they exist, or cliches that exist for a reason. Peyton Krebs checks those boxes. The morning of the trade, I put out a tweet. I didn't really, offer an in-depth analysis, but I just wanted to share a thought. I do believe that Peyton Krebs is captain material for some of these things that I just said. Now, you're not, as people are saying, well, you're not, can you just play a game first? That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying he's cut from the cloth of a leader, a natural leader that leads by example, inspires his teammates, that loves his teammates, right? I think he's a really important piece for this group. Talked about personality of the player that you're introducing to that locker room and that team chemistry. I think he's going to fit like a glove. On ice, when you look at his skill set, high pace, very good hands. He's probably going to, ultimately be a player that contributes points at a 1-to-2 ratio, goals to assists. Okay. I don't want to necessarily put a cap on, or like a number on what his point totals will be, because you're not always going to measure him by his points, but he's going to produce plenty. I've seen him play 2 games right now in Rochester. Okay, so of course, Tuck, you probably won't see him until the spring. Krebs, you're seeing him right now. He's playing for the Rochester Americans. They've been deploying him. It looks like he's probably going to stick with Jack Quinn on that line. Who their other winger is right now, they had him with Michael Mersch last game. He's a 28, 29-year-old veteran, so probably more of a career AHLer, okay? But they're already aligning him with Quinn. Grow together, get some momentum together on the farm. But what we've seen early is his ability to drive the play, his ability to work the boards, do some of that grunt work, get to the net, make plays around the net, pass first. So I think they did really well getting Krebs. I think they did really well getting Tuck. Now we'll see what they do with these picks that they got. These draft classes coming up, the kids these days have so much skill training. The depth of players available in the draft is really, it's just different than what it used to be. You're going to fish good players out of the late first and very useful players with your second round picks as well. So that story still needs to be written. But overall, I think with the tangible assets, I think they did pretty well here in their return.
If you're a Sabres fan and you want to see a little bit more of an immediate feedback regarding this trade, you want the Vegas Golden Knights to do well, because it's the only reason things get pushed back is if the Vegas Golden Knights end up with a top 10 pick, and then things then it be whatever. There's too many conditions on it. It's confusing, but the Golden Knights are a good team. They're probably going to be in the upper 2/3 of the league, you can probably assume, especially if Jack Eichel comes back and can contribute. Then I think that the Buffalo Sabres are going to be able to get their pick in 2022, or at least the first round pick, and then the second round pick comes right after that, the following season. So where would you put Krebs in the Sabres hierarchy of prospects? If you were to rank some of these guys, where does he fall?
He's definitely in the top 3. I think I'd have a hard time putting him ahead of Owen Power. And what I've been wrestling with is, the Krebs versus Jack Quinn situation. Right now, though, Jack Quinn is trending in a really good direction. It's not just about the goals that he scores. It's about his engagement level off the puck, his stick pressure, the way that he uses his body to win battles. And he's not a very big guy. I struggle with the Quinn versus Krebs position on that, but those are your top three right there. And there's another group right after them. They're going to keep pressure on those three, even Power. But I think, I do value guys that can play the center position. I think that it's more important, to have that skill set and that commitment and play in the middle and supporting your D and some of those things off the puck. Right now, I'm still led to believe that Jack Quinn's goal scoring ability, the natural ability, his knack for getting the spot and receiving pucks from a guy like Krebs probably has the value to keep him at 2 and Krebs 3. But I mean, I could wake up tomorrow and flip on that. I really could. But it's a solid group at the top, though, with those 3 that I mentioned, Tim.
Yeah, that's really encouraging to hear that you would consider putting Krebs number 2.
I would, and a lot of it is just because of value to the team. Value, the human, the character, that does matter. It really does. Look, you can rank prospects by just looking at stats and moving guys up and down based on their point totals versus the level that they're playing at. That's kind of not how I elect to do it. I look at, just kind of overall value to the team. And I think both Quinn, who was probably not given fair due by Sabres fans early on, but I think there's a lot of people that have the smelling salts now that he has 7 goals in his first 9 games this year.
Right.
I think they're seeing the light on why the Sabres made that investment in Quinn. But Krebs is the real deal. I believe that it's very easy when you watch these first 2 AHL games, especially. It's very easy to see him going up and down the middle of the ice at the NHL level for a long time. That right there puts him in the hunt for that 2 spot to me.
I don't want to make parallels where there aren't any. So I'm just going to throw these out as examples of trades and what they did for a team's identity, because this is an identity shifting trade. The fact that Jack Eichel is no longer on the team, regardless of what comes back. But there are different ways to get somebody off your team and have a mark be made. You can have the Hasek trade, which I referenced earlier for Slava Kozlov and whatever else. I can't even remember if there was a second part of that, in which you're giving away the best player on your team. Then there's the Michael Pekka trade, where you get Taylor Pyatt and Tim Connolly back, 2 totally different players, but young players coming up. And, and there's probably other trades too that I could maybe, mention.
Ryan O'Reilly trade.
Right. Okay. So what is your take on the fact that Jack Eichel is now no longer on this team? This trade has now been made. It wasn't, at least on the surface, it doesn't seem like a fleece job. It doesn't seem like, one of the great Darcy Regier trades either, where they unload Chris Gratton for Daniel Briere. I'm not asking you to judge the trade.
Mm-hmm.
Just what's your feel, as I'm making a lot of hand gestures here, trying to make my point, articulate it. And I think the COVID fog is still getting me, but what I'm trying to ask is, what's just your take on this team as it stands now after this big monumental trade?
I'm gonna start, and I'm using hand gestures too. The hand gestures, by the way, probably not the COVID fog. It's probably because I've been doing it for the 15 minutes that we've been talking. Okay, and I try to keep them out of camera, but I can't. I guess tough crap, right? But I'm gonna go back to what I said earlier. I do believe it's a deal that both teams are going to benefit from. I think it's very important also to call out that the style of the players that they got in return, the Sabres did from Vegas, fit right into this system that Don Granato, this up-tempo, play fast, quick passes, short passes, matriculate the puck up ice quickly, right? Both of those guys fit into that very nicely. That should not be overlooked either. And that's, most teams want to play that way now, but it's in stark contrast, that style is, to the style that they played under Ralph Kruger. That's why it's worth mentioning. Some of those trades that you mentioned may have been, I'll give you 4 bites of a cheeseburger for filet mignon. That's not this. Okay, this trade is not that, rather. I think that both teams, and again, we need to see what the Sabres do with those draft pick assets, that draft capital. And that I tried using my hands there, but I'm like holding them down now. But I think I think it's a good trade right now. I see given the fact that the Sabres were unwilling to retain salary, I think they did very well given the circumstances of how their position, the position they took on the player and what they needed to do. I go back, and again, I mean, I'm not trying to oversell the fact that these are two really good guys that seemingly want to be in Buffalo. That is critical in Buffalo. So more needs, I mean, we need to see Tuck. We're all just speaking about it. We need to see and evaluate the play and how he assimilates himself once he hits the ice. But what we know about that player, and he was another player, by the way, that I really liked in his draft class, for a lot of the things that we still like him for today. I know you're not asking me to evaluate the trade, but I do think it's one where I think it was a good hockey trade.
Yeah, I guess to ask that question the way I intended, you have to evaluate it a little bit. Like you have to at least get to a place where you can accept that they didn't give Jack Eichel away. Now everything has to hit, for a winner or a loser of the trade. But I guess just moving forward, even if you take the tack of, all right, Jack Eichel's gone, now time to move on. Let's forget that even happened.
Tim, every good trade.
How does this trade reset the organization if it does?
Oh, I mean, they're loaded from a prospect standpoint. And then that age bracket that I referred to earlier, that 24 and under, they're loaded there. We can get into some of those other guys to kind of quantify why they're loaded, why I say that. But on that trade, the one thing I will say is that I think any good trade has to hurt a little, right? We know Buffalo got hurt by losing Jack Eichel. I have a feeling that Vegas,
Any fair trade, I think. Any
fair trade, correct. Yes, that's right.
Has to hurt a little.
Well, sorry, now you know that I have business integrity because I basically am saying that all trades are fair, okay? But I think that giving up Peyton Krebs, and to a certain extent Alex Tuck, okay? But Krebs, given where Vegas is in their center depth, it was lacking severely, and they couldn't just throw Krebs in there right away as a 20-year-old. I think it hurt them to give up Krebs. I really do. That right there is kind of a little bit of the backdrop for also why I think it was a good trade for both sides presently. Now the story needs to be written still, right? But how it resets them, I mean, this is a youth movement for the Sabres. Kevin Adams, everything he's done, whether it's the Reinhart trade, getting a first and a goaltending prospect to build up the depth there. How he handled Ristolainen, getting a first-round pick that turned into Isak Rosén for Ristolainen. They're amassing some serious talent across the lineup, and it's different types of players. Kevin Adams didn't draft Matthias Samuelsson, but that's a stay-at-home, a territorial defenseman who's going to be an NHLer for a long time. You need that type of player as well. They've drafted different types of skill sets for different roles in the lineup. Procore Pultapov, who was drafted 33rd overall last draft, first pick of the second round. He's probably a guy who he could play with your skill players, but more likely is going to be a really firm, solid player, maybe on your third line. But that's useful. You need to have 4 lines. Roll them out, and on any given night, any line can be your number 1 line. Sabres have positioned themselves to be able to do that. It's going to be, if things come together the way that you can see, we haven't even talked about Peterka yet, but if things come together, it's going to be tough for some coaches to match up properly. But it's going to be a while. We're talking maybe 2 years, 3 years before you see the fruits of these efforts.
What about goaltending, Kris? I know that's your sweet spot. I know that you really like to get into the goaltending situation and as far down into the depth chart as you can get. What's your general take?
I think goaltending depth is still important. You always want to create competition. You can only play 1 on any given night and put 2, maybe 3 on your roster, but you want to have many. You got to create that internal competition, have guys pushing each other. Obviously, it's really, for me, when I look at the Sabres and where they're going moving forward, it's not about Craig Anderson. It's not about Dustin Tokarski. It's not about Aaron Dell. It's about Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. It's about Eric Portillo. It's about Devin Levi, and then whoever else they can keep drafting or acquiring via trade. When this Eichel saga started and the Rangers kept popping up, I know it's a pipe dream, okay? But I was like, you got to get a goalie back. You got to get, and I was like all about Shesterkin, where it's like, of course, the Rangers would have been absolutely nuts to trade Shesterkin, but he's that 24, 25-year-old guy. He's in that core age group, right? And he's a legitimate guy. So I think when you look at what the Sabres have,
it's got to hurt. You want Jack Eichel, it's got to hurt.
That's right. No, that's right. And I think goaltending is still very important to me. Luukkonen had a little bit of an uneven statistical start in Rochester this year. I think through his first 4 or 5 starts, his goals against ballooned over 6. His save percentage was about 85. Those are not good numbers. When you watch the games, there was some shared accountability there with the defenseman in front of him. Too many guys were getting behind the D and getting uncontested looks on Luukkonen. Now he has to be accountable where you need some saves to be made in some of those situations, but it's not all on him is what I'm saying. And I just referenced Matthias Samuelsson. Samuelsson came back. He's played 2 games. I ran the numbers last night. Luukkonen all of a sudden has a 1.51 goals against and a save percentage is like 96%. In the 2 games that Samuelsson's been back, is because he can kind of steady the defensive front in front of the goalie. It's amazing. Jay, Luukkonen didn't light the world on fire statistically last year in Rochester. He came up and did a pretty decent job when he got to the NHL because goalies they can do their job when you have really high level of competency in front of you. Eric Portillo at Michigan, he's won 9 of 11 starts. Big kid, very similar stylistically to Luukkonen. Luukkonen just has maybe a little more polish to his game at this part of his career, but promising prospect at Michigan on that loaded team. He's a sophomore. This is his first year having the net. I think that he is a legitimate prospect to play in the NHL. Whether he's a bona fide 1 or kind of that 1-2 kind of, he can kind of share the load there. That remains to be seen. Let's get him in Rochester and just kind of, go stage to stage with his development. And then Devin Levi is the one that's getting a lot of love from fans just because, early on in the season, he posted 4 shutouts, I think, in his first 7 starts. 2 of them were against, maybe lower level competition. That's worth noting. Bentley and Holy Cross are not Boston College and, whoever, BU, but, or Michigan for that matter. But, stopping pucks is stopping pucks, and D1 hockey is still a high level. But he's a smaller goalie, 6 foot. Okay, so where you have Luukkonen at 6'4", and you have Portillo 6'5", 6'6", you have this 6 foot guy. I personally have an affinity for goalies that are 6'1" and 6'2". I think sometimes when a goalie gets too big, they have bigger holes. But I do believe that, I like those athletic 6'1", 6'2" goalies. He's not too far off, Levi is at 6 foot, but he's fast. Holds his edges really well. He's a superior skater in that. His feet keep him in the plays, gets him square to the pucks and square to the shooter. We'll see. I want to get him into Rochester too. Maybe I don't think it's gonna be next season, maybe 2 years from now, but just a promising prospect. The one thing I'll say about smaller goalies, because I think, a lot of people want to broad stroke goalies based on their height and size. I look at leg length, arm length. You can have a guy that's 6'4", and that's great, but if he's all torso, it doesn't matter as much. And I always say that, some of the more underappreciated goalies of the last decade, one that I always look at is Jaroslav Halak. He's barely 6 foot tall. And I think he's very, why can't Devin Levi be in that same bucket as a guy like Halak and have a very long NHL career? He might. Okay. So I just want to throw that out there as well. But I think they did a good job addressing the need in that Reinhart trade by getting Devin Levi in the fold. Even though he was a 7th rounder, it doesn't matter. He can play, and we'll see where his game takes him moving forward, but he's off to a good start in college this year.
Your Twitter handle is @Sabres Prospects, but let's bend that a little bit if you'll allow it. Or maybe we can have a discussion on that particular aspect of the question that I'm about to ask. There's a 21-year-old who's on the Sabres roster right now, but he's played 209 NHL games. I don't know if Rasmus Dahlin is still a prospect or not. But when it comes to development, I wanted to get your thoughts as to what you're seeing from Rasmus Dahlin out there through 12 games this season.
I think that we've seen the Rasmus Dahlin that we've seen for many years, to be honest with you. Very strong one way and still needs to keep working on his game and upping his competency the other way. And the other way is defensively. Much has been made about the one-on-one defensive shortcomings that he might have against some of these fast, high-skilled forwards, the best forwards in the world coming at him and losing out on those battles. And that's a legitimate question. But I mean, this is still, he's really good going that other way. I mean, more points before the age of 20 than Bobby Orr, I think it was. I forget the stat is. This is what the Sabres knew they were getting. This is what I believe the fans knew they were getting in terms of a guy that still had to kind of work on things defensively. Erik Karlsson had to work on things too when he was a kid, younger guy, young man. I couldn't call Dahlin a kid anymore. He's not a prospect anymore, by the way. Once you pass like 70 games, I'm done with you. But I think, you go back to the Olympics when he played in his draft year when he was 17 years old. He was benched in the Olympics for some of the things that he's being criticized for right now. This is not a new issue. And
yeah, I think that's where the frustration comes from Sabres fans, especially when you were able to rationalize, okay, we didn't get Connor McDavid. We got Jack Eichel, and then we were able to slap on a Rasmus Dahlin right on top of that. And now look out. Now that's going to at least be okay. And that helps justify all the misery that we've gone through. And now Eichel's off the team. And now Dahlin isn't, now he's in his, third NHL season. Yeah. He's 21. He'll be 22 in a couple of months. Or no, actually, he doesn't turn 22 for a few more months. Yeah. But anyways, here he is, a young guy. And I'm sure that, the mixed signals or the mixed emotions regarding Dahlin are out there. Yes, he's still young, but we've seen a lot of him, and we see him every night, and we sweat out every shift. We live and die with every shift of a handful of players. I don't think people sweat out every shift of Kyle Okposo, but of Dahlin they do.
Yeah, they do. And look, I mean, the criticisms are legitimate. I'm not saying that. I'm also saying he's one, and unfair to him maybe is that he's always going to have that spotlight on him because he was first overall draft pick. I mean, that's not just in Buffalo. The whole hockey sphere is going to be watching him and placing expectations on him by virtue of where he was drafted. But, I think that you can't be emotional and say, we got to trade Dahlin if you're a Sabres fan without saying what you're trading him for.
Right.
Right. What are you trading him for? But no, I mean, look, it's concerning to fans, and I get why. I believe he'll improve and he'll get better. He seems to be putting the work in. I think that's all you can ask for right now. You're not going to magically become a shutdown defender overnight. I think that quality of teammates matters. Having centermen that come down and help you matter. Maybe not in the one-on-ones that we were talking about earlier, but I think, I think losing Jokiharju in that defensive core only put more pressure on Dahlin early in the season. It's just a tough situation for him to manage through right now, but I'm pretty confident, he'll manage through it. I mean, this is a young kid. He went, moved away from home at a young age and kind of put it together and had to adjust and fight through some things very early in his hockey career that I'm confident that he'll put it together. That doesn't help Sabres fans now. I understand that. But I mean, I think we always put too much emphasis on the extreme fan volume or fan voices. And I think there's a lot of that here. There's always people that are never going to be happy with anything. And sometimes I feel like that with Dahlin right now, where I think we just kind of got to chill a little bit. He's a very gifted hockey player. Focus on the good things while he's working through some of the shortcomings. And that's I'll just leave it at that, I think, with Dahlin.
Do you think with Eichel no longer on the roster, it'll allow fans to chill, like you just to use the word you just mentioned, because they're not supposed to go to the play? I mean, all right, we don't have to get aggravated that it's not happening. I'm speaking not from myself in the media, but I'm talking about as a fan. Like, can we just sit back and watch some hockey now? Do we have to? And of course, it's going to be tough with a guy like Dahlin because he is the number 1 overall draft pick, and you want to see more. But do you think that this team has the makeup to at least give the fans the ability just to watch hockey and not have to worry about, all right, it's not happening. Is it going to happen? It's not going to happen this year. And yes, they got off to a really good start. They're now 5-5-2, 15% of the season's already been played, which it's always amazing to me with hockey, how quick it goes. So I don't know which team's going to show up, but I don't know. It seems as though it's capable of being a team that can compete, and at least through the doldrums of Buffalo winter in January and February, if the Bills don't make it that far, and into March, that hopefully it's a team that you can at least sit back and enjoy a hockey game and not have to be pissed off that they're not defending their second consecutive Stanley Cup.
Yeah, I think that fan enjoyment level for watching the Sabres will only increase when kids like Quinn and Peterka are up here.
I like that emo.
You like this?
It's beautiful.
Okay, because I'm going to keep it then.
Some starburst energy going off your television.
It's like a glamour shot.
I like it.
Okay. Like Napoleon Dynamite's girlfriend is like taking a picture of me right now.
I want something
okay, I got to shut it, dude. No, but I think that the fan enjoyment, Tim, will improve. And, I think they'll have a better product when some of these young kids that they keep hearing about from guys like me and others hit the ice, because these are kids that are hungry, and it's just going to lead to a better product. It's going to lead to faster play, more excitement. And that's what you hope for. I think the Sabres right now are two different teams at home versus on the road, where they can control the matchups a little bit more with that last change. That does matter in terms of the tactics of managing the game. And Granato has proven to be very efficient with those matchups. But I think, it's a Peterka, Quinn, getting those guys up here, getting them looks. I think dropping that into this developing equation that the Sabres are looking to build right now, I think that's going to be a big component to fan enjoyment. I do. Their style is nice. I mean, we saw it at the tail end of last year with Granato. And last time I was on with you, Tim, we were debating, is he the guy? Do you give him the job? Well, you were looking at how the team played. How the team played at the tail end of last year is how they're playing right now. Maybe they're not having as much success putting the puck in the net lately. But that's kind of where I'm at, I think, is, it's all, we said it's a youth movement. And now as they can start introducing more youth, Krebs, Quinn, Peterka, Samuelson, maybe you give a guy like Askari Laaksonen a look at some point. I think that's going to keep fan interest, because I think the fans understand where exactly this team is at right now. You can't rely on Craig Anderson standing on his head at 40 years old every night and winning you games. Tage Thompson's development is a storyline that I think fans are attaching themselves to. Rasmus Asplin's development is a storyline that fans are also attaching. There's things here that I think are going to get fan interest. To answer your question, Tim, long-windedly, which I often do, I think there's plenty of things here to get some fan engagement going, to keep them watching a hockey game. I do.
And it's as simple. I mean, maybe this is too simplistic, but they are at least middle of the pack in the NHL right now in scoring goals. And that's something that was just so painful last season when Ralph Kruger was the coach. And there were times also, even after Kruger was let go, where the goals just weren't there. But at least they're making things somewhat entertaining. It's at least borderline interesting, at the very least. So even during this streak of 5 straight losses, they're still scoring goals.
And maybe they're, again, I don't know, devil's advocate. Is there an addition by subtraction thing going on with, like losing Ristolainen and things like that too, where fans are just reset their expectations, and maybe they're enjoying hockey while they're looking for the next person to
Reinhardt. They don't have the people who have the black hole of energy that just takes like the guy you hate, the guy you love to hate.
Yeah, I think there's, there could be some of that going on. I mean, that's more fans, psychological activity analysis of fans, right? As a fan base. But no, I think there is some of that going on here too. My fear is that Dahlin is going to become the new Ristolainen, where they just put the focus on him. And that's going to be deleterious, I think, to the relationship of the fans and the franchise and the player and the franchise if that happens. But no, I think, if Don Granato's vision for this team comes to fruition, they're going to be an entertaining team to watch. Some goals will go in. For them to be 500 basically right now, right? I think that's what you said, Tim. I mean, middle of the pack in terms of goals, and I think their record is right around 500. To me, they're overachieving based on the roster construction. I mean, they couldn't sign any more guys for $700K than they did in July or whatever it was. And, I think they're overachieving. it goes to that power of the group. And, maybe the underdog, maybe like a little major league effect, the Cleveland Indians for major league effect. No one's given us a chance. Let's just come together and make it happen. I don't know. It's very early, but hockey cliche suggests that you look at where you're at after American Thanksgiving, let's just say December 1. Okay. So let's give it a few more weeks, see where they're at, and have another follow-up conversation about the second half of the season and where this team's going to be. They're likely going to be picking high in the draft again. They have 3 picks. So Sabres fans will be excited about that because they do like shiny new toys and draft picks also.
5-5-2 heading into the weekend.
Better than I thought they would have been.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, better than everybody thought.
Yep.
Kris Baker.
Now, Bill Plaschke was saying, by the way, on Around the Horn, Plaschke was like, "Oh, they're going to make the playoffs. They're going to make the playoffs." So like, all right, settle down. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, a guy in LA, talking about the Sabres. I don't know. Just not what I expect. Not the expert that I would be like, let's check and see what Bill Plaschke's got to say about the Sabres.
But at least we have the worldwide leader talking about the NHL again.
That's true. Although it does seem like they're going through some growing pains with that in terms of, let's see what, let's see what we remember. They have a lot of people on their staff who have to, whose hockey muscles have atrophied over the years.
Quite a few. Yeah, quite a few. And some of it's forced, so they'll get there. Like anything new. It's like teaching a kid how to swim, They might drown. They might need the floaties, but they'll get there eventually. They'll shed the floaties.
The last one time I dropped my buddy off at his house and one of his kids left the bike out and we're shooting the shit, I'm dropping him off and we're still talking. And so, I'm out of my car and I'm like, I'm just going to grab this bike and ride it around the block real quick, just for fun. And it didn't go well. They say you never forget how to ride a bike. And that's true. I remembered how to ride it. The brain that thought I was 14 years old again didn't recalibrate to the body that was pedaling.
You're out there trying to do bunny hops and the center bar came and caught you in the nuts. Is that what you're saying?
No, I was out of gas. I was heaving for the rest of the day. Kris, thanks for doing this. Everybody should follow Kris Baker at Sabres Prospects on Twitter for deep thoughts on guys that you forgot were even on the roster or didn't even know in the first place. Sabres guys who were, 7th round pick 4 years ago playing in Czech Republic or wherever, over in Russia or tier 6 Sweden, whatever the hell else you're watching.
Victor Olofsson, Tim, who the Sabres have sorely missed the past few games, was once a 7th round pick.
They're fun.
Maybe I'm talking about the next Victor Olofsson. I'm not sure. But yes, follow me.
Follow Kris Baker at Sabres Prospects. Nobody watching this doesn't follow you already.
Sure, there's a few people that have gotten sick of me, But
you're not ubiquitous. You pick your spots. You are not. It's not as though you've been doing the media rounds for the last couple of weeks. There was a major trade involving prospects, and you're judicious.
That I am. I'm managing my time better than I historically have.
Well, get back to work. You got your golf on back there. You can pivot in your chair, pretend like you're working and watch golf. And I'm sure you have no bets on this tournament, whatever the hell it is.
No, I'm not. I'm not at all looking forward to Taylor Gooch teeing off here. For no reason.
What is this tournament and what continent is it being played on?
This is the Hewlett-Packard Enterprise Houston Open at Memorial Park. It's a Muni golf course, plays about 7,400 yards. Tough Bermuda grass, gnarly conditions around the green. Long hitters that are accurate off the tee should do well here.
Are the legitimate golfers still competing at this time, or are they packed it in for? I mean, who's in this?
A bunch of guys that you probably don't really follow much, but like, your big guns. So your Justin Thomas is not here. Rory's not here. DJ's not here. Hideki's not here. The leaderboard, you were looking at guys like Mark Leishman, Russell Henley, who I like this week. I liked Henley coming into this week. I like Taylor Gooch, who I mentioned already. He's
The Gooch.
The Gooch, Oklahoma State product, baby. But so I think you do get guys. This is their second to last tournament in the fall run before they kind of shut it down. Next week is the RSM, and then they'll be off for a little bit until they go to Hawaii in January. But no, it's not these star-studded. This isn't a Masters field by any means, but it's still a pretty highly competed. Some good young, kind of what we're talking about the Sabres, young guys that are emerging. That's what you have golf's version of that in this tournament this week.
You're a degenerate.
Yeah. Oh,
when it comes to
guilty.
the golf.
Dude, guilty. I mean, just without the golf, I'm a degenerate.
Sabres, it's a passion. Well, it's a passion too, but there's if not for the gambling aspect of it, I wonder how big of a golf fan you'd be.
It's a good question.
We'll get into that next time. We'll maybe we'll try to get to the bottom of that. We'll examine this.
Yeah, I'm down for a little. I'm down for that analysis because that's a good question.
Bills at Jets this weekend. New Jersey is a fine mobile gambling state that I will be spending my time in. I will not be going to New York City. I will be staying out at the Newark Airport at the Marriott there, which I love. It's a great hotel. Sounds awful.
Yeah.
But it's a great hotel, multiple restaurants, and it's in New Jersey. So I'll be enjoying some college football. If you want me to, maybe I'll tap into your dimpled noggin and get some golf tips for when I'm sitting there staring at a TV on Saturday.
Dude, the live betting on golf is insane. Yeah, so we should definitely connect on that. But the Bills game, by the way, hey, I'm always nervous about the Jets. I know we're not gonna do a deep dive here today, but I think that line, what was the line? Was it like 13?
Well, it was 14. I don't, or maybe it was 13 and a half. Let me double check it for your benefit.
Yeah, I'm just kind of curious. I mean, I wonder if Magic Mike being under center for the Jets, what that did to the line. I think it was like 13 and a half last I looked.
It is now down to 12 or 11 and a half in one particular book at Circa. It is 11 and a half, 12 and a half in some places, but it opened at 13 and a half. It's now being bet down.
Mike White effect.
So they don't let the people are putting money on the Jets.
Right. I think that I think the quarterback news yesterday had a pretty big impact on that line. We'll see what happens on Sunday morning, but man, I don't know. I like that Mike White kid. I like the story. I like the whole deal with it, but we saw the game last night with the Ravens and the Dolphins. I mean, it is a week-to-week league. It's another cliche that we're throwing out this morning on this lovely sunny Friday, but it's so true. And that tenet alone has me nervous again, because look at the history between these two teams the past couple of times. The Jets just kind of show up and play.
47 and a half is the total, which seems a little high to me. I think you could see, unless the Bills totally wake up, and Dawson Knox coming back will make a big difference.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about that a little later in the show with Joel Staniszewski, of course. But hopefully Dawson Knox, there was no security blanket for Josh Allen last week. He just got the shit kicked out of him. And yes, he did have an awful game, and a lot of people are picking apart his game and his decision-making, but he was running for his life. He had been hit hard. As a quarterback, even when they're not near you, you still feel it. He had, it was just the offensive line was that bad. It's a chain reaction. And so Josh Allen, in turn, had one of the worst games of his NFL career. And as I wrote, it wasn't Josh Allen's fault. It was the fact that the offensive line was terrible, and he didn't have his security blankets, and his running backs can't help him. So anyway.
Yeah. It's tough, but hey, hopefully that serves as a nice little segue into your segment with Joel, who is awesome every time he's on with you.
Kris Baker, thanks for doing this. I know you got things to do with work and watch golf, and I appreciate you giving me your time.
Anytime, man. Anytime. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
The sounds of The End of Everything and Force-Fed Lies means the lead singer of that group is now joining us, Joel Staniszewski, to talk some sports bets. Joel Staniszewski, he's on the line from Vegas, as he usually is, to give us his thoughts on the Bills from a betting perspective. Joel Staniszewski, I'd just like to remind everybody, he's from Sloan, he's from St. Joe's, he's from Buff State, but he's been out in Vegas for a long time as a handicapper, as an industry analyst, as an odds maker. And Joel, it was such a raggedy ass season that because of the bye week and then some scheduling for me because I was traveling and then I get COVID, you have not been on the show for a couple of weeks. So I think we're just going to go ahead and hit the reset button. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, I went and maybe people will listen at home, will kind of keep track themselves. I had a week, whatever it was, 3 weeks ago that goes down in history. 0-7. You could throw a dartboard. You could put take
right?
the printouts from a sports book.
Well, I think you had a push. I think you had a push in there, Joel.
Maybe there was a push. That's right. It's possible, but it was to the point where I was like, how does that even happen? Like, there was once a time, this was way back when I had first moved to Vegas and I was working at the sports book in the Paris, and you could walk out the side door of the Paris and walk right into the Barbary Coast, which is now called Barbary Coast, then it was called Bills. Now it's called, who cares what it's called? It's a shithole. But you could walk right in out the side door.
Is Dre's still there? The restaurant Dre's?
Yeah, it's still there. Yeah, it's called like I don't remember what it's called. I feel having COVID has honestly affected my memory. Like people I cannot remember
see it in their minds, as I can.
Yeah,
I can taste the dish rag beer because they didn't clean their lines ever. You'd get the free, you'd go and place a bet, and you get take a draft and be like, nah, I think I'm gonna have a bottle because that last one tastes like you just wrung out a dish rag in my mouth.
So I went and I was doing that. I would go there on my breaks or before work or after work, put on a little bit of money or whatever. There was a time, this is probably 2005, I went 14 straight bets without winning. 14. And I thought, this is impossible. Like, how does this happen? I'm hitting bad beat after bad beat. I'm getting blown out. I'm just picking the wrong sides. It's just like, if I played under, they scored 3 touchdowns within a minute. If I play over, there's no scoring in the first half. It's just like, I couldn't pick the right side to save my life. And I just kept going and kept going. And I remember the game that I couldn't remember exactly the game, but it was Steelers and Bengals. And I betted over, and the game was just a shootout, and it went to overtime. So that was like a guaranteed, like, can't lose. And then I won on like the Montreal Canadiens. Like, it was like, I just kept playing and eventually got out of the funk, and that's what happens. You get in the funk. So I know we weren't keeping track, and I didn't even submit anything to you, but went 0-7, took the next week off because of the bye week. And I was like, I'm not even going to look at football because I hate it right now. Next week I went 5-1. I even bet there's a prop up that will there be a safety? And so I was looking up some stats and I was like, man, we have hardly no safeties this year. So I bet no. And I was talking about it with somebody at work and they're like, no, your numbers are wrong. There's way more safeties. You probably bet the wrong side of this bet, but luckily there wasn't any. So I even lucked into a bet that way. So, and then the Bills played the Jags and the number came out, in my opinion, high. But if a number is off, if a line is off 2 or 3 points, and we're talking about a 5-point spread, that's a huge percentage off.
Right.
But if we're talking about 2 or 3 points off on a 15-point spread, it's a much smaller percentage. So I thought the line was high on the Jags. It was at 15. I thought it should have been more like 12.5 to get that 13 money. But at that point in time, it's such a 12.5, 13, 14 to 15 is not that big of a jump. when you're talking about a really big spread. But I didn't bet the game, thankfully. But then I ended up losing on something else. And then I did the thing that you're not supposed to do and bet when you're angry. And I did. And I bet a bunch on the Golden Knights who won. And then I bet a bunch on like the Minnesota Wild hockey. It was both hockey games. And that one hit too. And I was like, okay, good. Now I'm up from all the money I've lost, but I'm going to take some time off. But that only lasted a couple of days. Now we're back in it.
Well,
Now
let me ask you this, Joel.
This week.
When you are in a slump like that and confidence is shaken, because in sports betting, it's a little bit different. I mean, and there are ways that you can get aggressive or go, on bets that have long odds. But the traditional sports bet is you pretty much have a 50-50 chance of winning the bet, right? I mean, that's the way it's kind of set up. You're going to either pick the over, the under, whichever side. There are only two teams on the field theoretically, and you're getting points. So that's the handicapping aspect of it.
Right.
Unlike for instance, back when I used to play a lot of poker and you lose your confidence at the poker table, you can go in the tank and make a lot of bad decisions because there are so many variables,
Right.
so many people in a given hand, or maybe you're going heads up, whatever. But in sports betting, like I was saying, the traditional aspect of it, you have roughly a 50-50 chance of winning that bet. So how can shaken confidence impact you as a sports bettor?
I think well, I have a personal thing where if I bet on a team like twice and they are both games are like covering and then they somehow end up losing, like backdoor covers or just fall apart, like to me, they're dead. So like to me, the Carolina Panthers are dead. I will not play them again this year. I don't care how far the number's off. And that's probably a bad thing because you shouldn't be carrying this animosity towards a team that, they didn't not cover on purpose.
Yeah. Isn't
and the
that
same
like
goes for the Bears.
You're going to refuse to bet even at the roulette table because it burns you too many times?
Right. Yeah. So of course that's a bad idea. But if a number is off that far, I'll still probably play it. But for a little bit, I'm still bummed at the Panthers and the Bears. But
you can get away with it because there are 30 other teams, or I guess 31 other teams, and 15 other games that you can bet on.
Of course. So you kind of just stick with your game plan and maybe you kind of look a little bit harder. So if you've been playing games that you assume are like 2 points off, well, then maybe you go to like 3. Like, okay, I'm not going to play this game. It's only off 1.5 or 2, in my opinion. Then I'm going to put that one on the back burner and not play it.
You would tighten up.
You just kind of tighten up. Yeah.
Same as a poker, like, hey man, I'm getting some speed knots here to make sure that I don't do anything stupid. I'm going to get extra conservative.
Right. Yeah. So it's a conservative thing. You still keep betting because the last thing you want to do is go on a hot streak and you're like, well, I was betting 110 a game, but now I'm only betting $33 a game, but I just won 8 out of the last 10 bets, but I'm still down. Like, you want to still be consistent. Just pick and choose your spots a little bit better. And that could be a number of things. That could be the way you look at power rankings, or the way you give weight to certain teams or certain players or certain weather or certain travel time. You kind of need to just kind of reevaluate because everything kind of changes. The game changes. The amount of penalties called by a certain group of referees is very important to an outcome of a game. So you kind of take all that kind of stuff you take a secondary look at it. Like, okay, I've been a little too quick to be like, yep, that's a good line, take it. That's a good line, take it. Maybe you kind of take your time and think about it a little bit more.
Well, here we are at the tail end of what I was calling the Bills' midseason exhibition run, which should have been 3 easy games against Miami at home, at Jacksonville, of course, last week, which was a loss, and now at the New York Jets. The Miami game was even rough. The Bills it was a backdoor cover. They
Mhm.
probably could have knelt out the clock or just ran the ball into the middle of the line a few times. They had that game comfortably won, but they decided to flex and go for the touchdown. They were looking for that
Yeah.
swag. They'd had such a rough first half. They felt the need to as Deion Dawkins says, get their piss hot and hopefully flow it into Jacksonville, which didn't happen. So
Yeah, it definitely didn't happen.
how do you read the Bills here as they are a -12 or -13, depending on the book right now? I was talking with Kris Baker earlier today during our segment talking about the Sabres, and we were looking at the number, and it was -11.5 at one book. But how do you read these Bills and their inability to score and giving almost 2 touchdowns?
Yeah, what did Josh Allen say a couple of weeks ago? Some people get figured out and some people figure it out. And the Bills have been having really tough time with I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I know the specific lingo and coaching strategies, but like too high safeties and he's getting too much pressure. The offensive line isn't performing. And I mean, when you have injuries on the offensive line, doesn't have any time. So he doesn't have enough time. They got too high safeties. So he's not going deep with his passes.
He's been without Dawson Knox. So that means that's one of those safe, security blanket type targets that he can dump the ball to. And his running backs have been unproductive too.
Yeah. So you don't have that. You don't have the time to throw open. You don't have your security blanket. You don't have a running game. So you have to try to figure it out. So, in my opinion, again, I think the line is a little high. It's come down from when it opened a bit. But again, I think the line being off is a small enough percentage that you can go with the Bills and feel comfortable minus the 12.
And do you think what's your experience tell you regarding how that line may or how the spread may change between now and kickoff?
I don't think it'll go much lower. And at that point, I mean, the thing that when I got into the book was 2 is a dead number in the NFL, 2, 12. Now, granted, now we're dealing with a different time with 2-point conversions more relevant. And, so that number is more of a live number, but 11.5 to 12 isn't a big enough number to think that you need to wait or buy a half a point or anything like that. So I think this is the kind of game where, like the guy from Jacksonville was saying, like looking over the sideline, they just look like they didn't care. And maybe that's the kick in the ass they needed. Like, you got embarrassed by the worst team, one of the worst teams in football. And the Jets have been also playing poorly, but they've been playing better recently. But I think also when you look at Mike White, it's one of those he did really well in a game or two. He must be great. And the Bills have been burned by that a million times with Rob Johnson and Brian Brom, and you think, oh, this guy did well in a game or two.
EJ Manuel against Carolina the one year,
right? And
you can
think like this guy's good, and then you're like, oh wait, no, back to reality. He's not that good. And I think that I think that's the case. I mean, sometimes you do find these diamonds in the rough in the later rounds of a draft, and of course Tom Brady. Everyone's going to talk about Tom Brady, but the same goes for Dak Prescott, Tony Romo. I mean, there's a lot of quarterbacks who were taken late, who came in later in their career and finally started to start and were great. So I just don't think he's one of them. And I don't think the Jets are enough of a team to compete when the Bills get their shit together and play the right way. And, you can look at the Bills and say that they played poorly and lost. They're 0-2-1 against the spread their last 3 games. But they were also very close to winning three out of the 3 games. I mean, they were a slip away from beating Tennessee. They were a couple of plays and a field goal away from tying and possibly going into overtime. And of course, they didn't cover those games. But the team, even when they play horribly, are still right in there. I mean, we're past the years of the Bills losing by 24 and 31 points and just getting their doors blown off and just getting garbage time yards. Like, we're still getting, I mean, Josh Allen, for having a bad game last week, still threw for like 275. So, I mean, he still had a good game comparatively, statistically speaking. I mean, we didn't get any touchdowns and he got sacked and there was a couple other really, I mean, the offensive line was just a turnstile.
Yeah,
The
he
fact
turned
that
the ball
Cody
over.
Ford-
In my opinion, he turned the ball over, not necessarily because he's a bad quarterback. It's because he was getting the shit kicked out of him. And he was feeling his bones getting rattled before they were getting rattled, and that's what happens. So he's unloading the ball and he's throwing it into harm's way, and he's trying to think of making a move when he should be protecting the ball. And that's what happens when you're the best running back and happen to be the quarterback on your team, and it all falls on your shoulders.
Did you see that like blood stain on his jersey, on his shirt?
Right. Yeah. On his left bicep.
Yeah. So I don't know if that was something also, because it was definitely getting bigger as the game went on. So he probably wasn't also feeling very good because of all that and getting beat on. And I was texting with my brother and sister. I was like, how does Cody Ford even get on the plane to go home? Like, just give him bus fare and go get out of here. Like, how? And again, I probably mentioned this before. Like, that's the reason why I could never be a coach on a football team. Like, I would literally take Cody Ford's helmet and I would throw it into the crowd and go, get out of here. Go back into the locker room because you're awful.
You don't need this.
I could go out there and I could do that. Like, come on. It was just pathetic. And what an absolute waste of a high pick. And I know that other media outlets have talked about how taking Boogie Basham in the second round was a wasted pick. Dude's barely playing, and we had glaring issues on the offensive line and with cornerback, and they didn't do anything. Boogie Basham could be great in a year or two, but we don't need him to be great in a year or two. We need an offensive line today. So
what are your thoughts on the total? 47.5, two teams that have trouble scoring, but have scored.
Right. Yeah. You never know with a healthy Mike White, he could throw for 400
Throw
yards
the record
again.
books out with Mike White.
Yeah. You don't know with that guy. You really don't. But I honestly believe that the Bills are going to cover the spread, and I think it's going to go over. I think they're going to win. In my mind, they're going to win easily, like by like 20 points. So like a 35-15, 34-14 type of thing. I really do. So I'm gonna go Bills, and I'm gonna go over.
Anything else on the board that you like, Joel?
Yeah, there's three games that I really like. Tennessee Titans -2.5, which I bet, and now I think it's at 3 because of Kamara's out for the Saints. So I bet them at 2.5. It's probably now 3 everywhere else, but I got 2.5 because I really like that line. That line should be, in my opinion, more like a 5.5. Not that it's going to get there.
You can still get it for 2.5 at Win and also at FanDuel. So it is still 2.5. You can, if you shop.
Take it. And LA Chargers -3.
All right.
And
that's against Minnesota. Chargers are at home.
Yep. And the Kansas City Chiefs playing in Las Vegas, Nevada, -2.5. I think I think the line is right. I really do with that game. But I think the Raiders just are just having so much trouble going on. Now there's more stuff with Gruden trying to sue the NFL. I've heard rumors that there's a huge like money issue with the team. I don't know if any of that rumor mill has come out to you about there's some big issues with money for the team.
Well, that's been a Mark Davis thing for a long time.
Yeah. So I've heard that more stuff is going to come out regarding them, and it's going to just affect the team. That's what I've heard. Take it for what it's
As
worth.
if they haven't been affected, and we haven't even, not to mention Henry Ruggs.
Right. Yeah. Crazy stuff.
Before I let you go, Joel, I want to ask you about the Green Bay line with Aaron Rodgers. Now, he's expected to play on Sunday, but he will not have been with the team for 10 days, I guess, almost 2 weeks. And he's going to just be showing up to the plane on Saturday. I'm sorry, the game's in Green Bay, so there's no flight to worry about. But Seattle at Green Bay. Green Bay is a 3.5-point favorite. Obviously, it's a huge variable. You really don't know. But with a player as important as Aaron Rodgers, your thoughts on him being away from the team? Or maybe it's, like with Tennessee versus the Bills last year when they didn't practice for 2 weeks. Maybe it's overblown. I don't know. Aaron Rodgers at this point of the season knows the plays and can slip right in. I don't know what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I don't think Aaron Rodgers missing 10 days is a big thing. I really don't. Seattle, I don't know how much Russell Wilson has practiced, but I know he's back this week. So he's been out for a while, even longer. They're traveling a long distance. I think if that line drops to 3, that I would strongly consider taking the Packers at 3. 3.5, I think, that half point. I'm a little nervous about it, but I still think the Packers with Aaron Rodgers. I mean, he's been in the league, I don't know, God knows how many years, 15 years, we'll say. And he knows that team. He knows that playbook. He's just an incredible athlete. So him being out, missing a week or practice is not like, I don't know, trying to think of a young quarterback. Mike White missing 10 days of practice.
Right.
He's going to walk right. He's probably been doing these plays in his head. He's been thinking about him in his sleep. I don't think him missing this time will slow him down at all.
It'll be interesting to see if he comes back with something to prove, because we also saw very early in the season the very disinterested Aaron Rodgers, and if it'll just be interesting, and I'm sure that the fans, maybe how the reception that he gets in that Lambeau Field, it'll be fascinating to see how that plays out.
Yeah, he definitely lets his emotions affect his play, and you can tell when he's not interested. And like Cole Beasley had said, like he thought people were booing him. You never know if Aaron Rodgers comes in and he's getting booed or his teammates are giving him some guff. Maybe he just puts it in neutral because he doesn't care.
He is the reigning MVP. However, he may have just probably cost his team a win by not being available against Kansas City last weekend. Maybe that costs. I mean, I don't know it'll be interesting to see how the fans respond to their hero. Maybe they're just tired of his act also. I mean, they got sick of Brett Favre in Green Bay. They can get sick of Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, they know he's leaving. He wants to leave. He didn't want to play this year. They made some concessions and he made some concessions, so he's playing. But it's not like he's going to be there for very much longer. So yeah, if he starts winning and comes out and he's dealing and they score a couple times off the bat, like people are going to forget quickly, just like Cole Beasley. I think Cole Beasley is a moron, but I don't know him. I don't look up to him like I expect him to be a beacon for scientific knowledge. He's a football player. He went to college to play football. He has a career because he can play football, not because he's a doctor. So if he wants to think what he thinks, fine, go ahead and think that and be ignorant about stuff. That's fine. And maybe I'm ignorant because I just listen to doctors.
But don't drop the 12-yard
exactly
pass across the middle.
You make a 3rd and 15 reception and dive across to get the first down. I don't care. I'm sure
big
there's
drop
a lot of players. Yeah, I'm sure that there's a lot of players on the Bills that I don't agree with something about them, their politics, their religion, their thoughts about the government, whatever. I'm sure there's a zillion things, but most of the time you usually just keep your mouth shut about it and you go about your business. But when it becomes vocal, now it's like now everyone who hates him really hates him or now hates him. Everyone who's pro how he believes, now all of a sudden they come out of the woodwork that they love him, even though they've been saying they're boycotting football because of kneeling. But the whole thing's a big, no one gives a shit. No one cares. But you make a catch and I love you. You drop it and I hate you again. You know, like I hate Cody Ford right now. Cody Ford comes in, they put him in at fullback and he makes a touchdown catch in the end zone. I'm gonna love him again. So that's just how fans are with their sports teams. You know, they do something great, you love them, and then when they mess up something, you hate them, and you whatever. It's a love-hate relationship.
Well, it'll be, we'll see what you think of Cody Ford in a couple of days. I don't know if it'll be much different. But to recap, Joel Staniszewski says, take the Bills and give the Jets 12 points. Take the over 47.5. Also take Tennessee, give New Orleans 2.5 points. Take the Chargers at home, give Minnesota 3 points. And Kansas City at Las Vegas, right there in Joel's backyard. Take Kansas City, give the Raiders, the potentially bankrupt Raiders, whether morally, ethically, spiritually bankrupt Raiders, go ahead and give them 2.5 points.
You got it.
Joel, thanks for this. Sorry to get you wound up about all kinds of stuff, but it's fun. It's part of the fun. We don't know where we're going to land. We're just going to talk sports and get some bets in, and then you'll get your blood pressure up.
Yeah, so. I know you lived in Vegas for quite a while, and I don't know how familiar you are with the intersection where Henry Ruggs got into that accident. But I
lived very close to there.
It is not a stretch of road where you open it up and can go fast.
No,
whether
it's residential.
60, it's just residential. So it's like it'd be the equivalent of like driving down like Union Road in Cheektowaga. It's not like we're talking about some stretch of road like out in the boonies of Alden and you can just open it up because it's just farms. I mean, I literally drove past it the next day. I was going to my friend's house and like they still had spray paint like where the cars were going. They had all these skid marks. There was a little display for the girl, and it was just like there's a bunch of lights right in there that it's like 3 lanes, but it's a very narrow 3 lanes because it's a bit of an older stretch of road. But it's just like that's just crazy. Like that's just completely asinine, and it just baffles my mind that this person with all of this talent in the world just doesn't even have the smarts to even not drive 156 miles an hour on a 40 mile an hour stretch of road. It's just mind blowing.
With other people out there that you can injure, and then somebody right there in the car with you.
Yeah.
You know, his girlfriend,
the mother of your child.
Right.
Yeah. You just no care for anybody. It's crazy.
Well, maybe the Raiders are cursed. And congratulations on your NFL team in Las Vegas. I hope you enjoy it.
Nope. It's always go Bills. But I do back the Golden Knights when it's not a Sabres game. So when it's not a Sabres game, I do back the Golden Knights, except Robin Lehner. Whenever anyone starts talking about the Golden Knights, I always say Robin Lehner is a drunk piece of shit. And people get mad. And they go, he mentioned that he has problems. I say, hey, we all got problems. I don't come to work drunk and pretend like I'm not, and then try to talk about.
Well, he's reformed. He's been good since then. He's been, as far as we know.
Then can he pay the Sabres back his 3 years salary for shitting the bed for 3 years?
I see. Well, how about this? Tell us about Jack Eichel. Are you happy about that?
He didn't want to play there. He didn't want to play in Buffalo anymore.
Can you root for him as a Golden Knight?
I think so. Again, they only play the Sabres twice a year. So
it is a little easier. They're in a different conference. They're not
totally
competing for seeding with the Raiders. Even, you know, there's
exactly
reasons.
So Leonard, fine. That's great. That's fine. Whatever. But the trade that we got for Eichel, I'm very happy with it. Like for a player that didn't want to play in Buffalo anymore, you actually got a decent haul.
Joel, you're saying we in regard to the Golden Knights. It seems as though you favor the Golden Knights more than the Sabres.
It's the royal we. The royal we. We're both we.
I see.
It's hard to. It's they're good. They're a good team. They're fun to watch. So I like them. I do. Just not when the Sabres play.
The Sabres are pissing you off. It's easy to latch onto the other team in your
right
in your fandom when the Sabres are doing what they do. Well, Joel, thanks for this.
All right, thanks.
if you catch wind of any good Eichel prop bets, let me know. If there are any good
All right.
Eichel surgery prop bets.
All right, I'll keep an eye out.
All right. And hey, be sure to pass along any other Raiders gossip when you hear that those checks
I
are
will.
bouncing.
I'll let you know.
The financial needs of a business go beyond tax and attest services. That's why CTBK goes beyond accounting services and offers outsourced solutions through their affiliation with CFO Solutions Plus. These additional services allow clients to focus on their operational and long-term strategic goals. Trust CTBK's outsourced solutions to provide cost-effective, value-added financial services tailored to your company's needs. Call CTBK at 716-630-2400. Again, 716-630-2400. Or go to ctbk.com to learn more about CTBK's outsourced solutions.